Good morning, afternoon, and evening to whoever's listening out there. I don't know when you're listening, morning, afternoon, or evening. That's why I said all three. Everyone, welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. First off, let me introduce the Monica to my Ross, the Arya to my John, and most importantly, the Wanda to my Pietro. It is Kelsey Kilpatrick. How are you?
Hi, Dill. Thank you so much for that intro. That was so
Wasn't it
sweet.
good? I
That was
pulled that
really good.
right off the
Who
top of
is
my brain. I
Arya
didn't
and
rehearse that.
John, may I ask?
Oh, boy.
Is
Oh, you
that
gotta have a
is
lot
that
of...
is that Game of Thrones?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
I
you gotta. That's
haven't
a whole
read
nother
or
fandom you
watched.
gotta deal with.
All right.
Yeah, it's got its ups and downs. I'm very much on the upscale, but some people are on the downscale on it now. So,
Okay.
yes, but the best character in the entire world of cinema and television to me is Arya Stark. So there you go. You're welcome. You're my favorite character.
Why,
Um,
thank you.
but you're not a character. You're a real person. You're Kelsey, and we are here to talk about...
Am I a character though? It's up for debate.
Everyone's their own character and their own story. So, maybe
Exactly.
this is just your life, and this is what your existence of your life
This
is,
this is
and what
my
what you
Westview.
perceive. Yes, it's your life, and I'm just a figment of your Westview imagination. I don't actually exist. You podcast by yourself
That's fine.
every week. It's fine. Welcome, guys. We are officially in the off season. We are not. I feel like it's a sporting event. We have 2 weeks now to just sit and reflect and relax before Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But of course, we have our recap of the finale for WandaVision for you right now, and then of course we will have lots of stuff coming your way next week, which we'll explain at the end of the show. And then 2 weeks from then, you're getting some Falcon and Winter Soldier because we're jumping right back into it. But now we're still on the WandaVision time. But first, we have our articles of the week or our news of the week. Sometimes they're Instagram posts, sometimes they're podcasts, other Marvel news. So, Kelsey, why don't you start us off with your Marvel news of the week?
Well, I just found out that another cast member has been confirmed for Thor: Love and Thunder. Melissa
Oh, boy.
McCarthy was spotted filming down in the Down Under, and
Okay.
apparently, we've got confirmed that not only was Matt Damon involved in it as well in Thor Ragnarok, but they also have Liam Hemsworth involved, and now Melissa McCarthy's involved. So the theory is that Matt Damon is reprising his role as player Loki in the
The
play.
actor. Yeah.
Liam has come back to reprise his role as the actor playing Thor, and Melissa McCarthy is actually playing Hela in the little play that's going to come
Oh,
about.
that's
So
fun.
excited
Yeah,
for
so we got
that.
our own little troop within a troop. That's great.
Exactly. She's a very charming actor. She's very funny lady. So I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually funny because Game of Thrones has a similar episode where there are actors playing the characters, and they have one in Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mean, I
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
a lot of these shows and movies have like these little like players
Meta.
who play the characters. It's very meta. Yeah, we even
Exactly.
have a little bit of that, I guess, in WandaVision, people playing other people. But they're not already existent people, so it's a little weird. Pietro, which we'll get to, is technically also that. So,
Honestly,
um,
I'm not looking forward to the amount of times I'm gonna have to say boner throughout this episode.
yeah, so we got that E on it for a reason on that podcast. We got that E for explicit just for a reason because if kids are wandering through and they don't want to hear boner 40 times in an episode, parents, this is why we put the explicit notice on our podcast. So you're welcome for that. That's great though, Melissa McCarthy. I love her.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see her do. I guess it's a comedic role. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, probably a
Yeah.
very comedic take on a very villainous and threatening character. So that's gonna
Yeah,
be
that we may or may
fun.
not be talking about next week. So, teasing that down the road. We might be talking about Hela next
Right,
week.
exactly.
Who knows? And Loki, maybe. I don't know. So my news is actually to tie into this WandaVision episode because there's really we're a little light on Marvel news. We are because this is such a huge thing that I don't think Marvel's ready to like drop all this stuff on us when we're just kind of taking in an episode. So my article is actually not an article. It's actually a interview with Paul Bettany and Good Morning America, where he did confirm that the actor that he was so excited to act alongside of, he was play with like it's a toy. I mean, Vision is inanimate, but whatever. Well, not inanimate. I'm gonna get lots of hate for just that last 10 seconds of talking, so I'm just gonna move on. Paul Bettany basically confirmed that the actor he couldn't wait to star alongside, was in fact himself. So
Yep.
he has confirmed it that he was trolling us, not necessarily trolling us. I mean, think about how much fun it would be to act against yourself. Chris Evans got to do it in Endgame, Cap versus Cap. Hugh
That's
Jackman
true.
got to do it in Logan, Wolverine versus Wolverine. We see this happening in a lot of movies. So, yeah.
So we just got
That's my news.
played, essentially. He
Yes,
played us
we
all.
got played. And I do want to also kind of tie in another part, just right off the bat. Thank you, actually, Dan Merle, one of my favorite critics, actually put this in his video as well, his review for the episode. I try not to watch a ton of reviews, but he's one of my favorites, so I watch his stuff. But he did bring up the Elizabeth Olsen article that was posted a while ago about this Luke Skywalker cameo. And I did a little digging as well to find just a screenshot of that article. And this is the headline: Will WandaVision have its own Luke Skywalker moment? Elizabeth Olsen really excited for surprise to come. Now, that's the article saying Luke Skywalker, but she never once in her interview says Luke Skywalker. She says, when asked if WandaVision has anything similar in store, namely a casting that she can't believe it hasn't leaked yet, Olsen gave us a quick yes. And though she dared not offer any specifics, she did share with a laugh that I'm really excited for viewers to see what or who is coming. So first off, the or who was totally added by whoever wrote this article, because that is not a quote directly from Elizabeth Olsen. All she said is, yes, I'm really excited. So when asked if there's something similar to Luke Skywalker coming, she said yes. So this could mean many things, because the article, as you see, is posted February 2nd, which was days before the Pietro reveal. So it could be that she was talking about Evan Peters. It could even be that she was talking about Agatha, where she's like, I can't believe this hasn't leaked yet. It's not necessarily saying that there was going to be a Luke Skywalker-esque cameo. That was the person who made the article was like, oh, it could be a Luke Skywalker-esque cameo. So I think a lot of people getting disappointed at that are reading too far into what the article is making you leading you to believe. So I just wanted to clear the air right there that Elizabeth Olsen should not be blamed. All she said is, yes, there are some exciting reveals coming. But the article wanted to put that Luke Skywalker name on it, so now people are saying, oh, it's Magneto, or, oh, it's going to be Robert Downey Jr., or it's going to be, like, someone else, or someone bigger, like Tobey Maguire. Like, I think that there was a point even where I said, I was like, what if it's Tobey? What if Tobey walks in? And I think this is what kind of ruined the finale for some people, is they were just expecting this big reveal. And I think I won't get ahead of ourselves, but I know you have opinions about some of the reveals, especially the Pietro Quicksilver thing that we'll talk about later. For anyone who watched Kelsey's TikTok at Cause13, you might have seen some TikTok rants about that. But I think it's important to realize that we really have to check our sources, because sometimes sources will lead us to believe there's something coming when there's really not. And actors will say something that is very surface value of, yes, I'm excited for something coming, and someone will blow it up and say, it's going to be Luke Skywalker-esque cameo. So whoever wrote that article, you did a good job making everyone think that Magneto was going to show up. And Paul Bettany, I mean, I do blame you for the trolling, but hey, you didn't lie. So
yeah, he didn't lie. I don't blame either of them. I feel like this is just a classic case of the media just misconstruing and twisting their words to just get a good, clickbait, basically, a good headline out of the interview. So
yeah, and to be fair, I mean, yeah, we'll dive into it. I think this is a good segue. I mean, to be fair, a lot of the show itself has been so built on speculation that I'm trying to think, if we hadn't looked at the internet at all, if we hadn't seen any other Marvel thing ever before, maybe these big payoffs like Agatha Harkness, would carry a lot more weight, because it would be a more genuine surprise, because we saw things coming so ahead of time and saw things that never came. I think it can really adjust and change the view on how you judge a whole episode or a season. I think now, knowing what exactly this season is and what exactly we are getting, I think going through, I'll have a much better time than watching each episode and getting my hopes up only to be proven wrong, which I think there's a great element to that. And I think were very cautious when they were, constructing this episodic format. Like, this is how it's going to be. We're going to see people speculating. Mephisto is going to be heavily talked about. Kevin Feige had to have known that. He's not an idiot. So I think, that was the intention, was to lead us astray, only to tell us, no, this is what it was all along. And, that's what their show is, and I can't complain about that. It is disappointing to an extent, but I think overall episode, I'm very positive on. I think overall they wrapped up, if we are centralizing on Wanda and Vision, this was a really good series and a really good ending to Wanda and Vision's story. Or at least at this point. So I think, yeah, there are moments and things that we were led on to believe that weren't true, and we read too far into some things, and we thought there was a bigger picture that there really wasn't necessarily. But I don't think that's a bad thing. In the moment, it might be, but I think looking forward and looking back on this show, I think I'm going to lean much more positively than I even am now. And I'm very positive on this episode. So, Kelsey, give me your brief thoughts overall on this episode, and then let's dive into it.
I agree with you, Jill. I will say that I obviously I've expressed my disappointment with the Ralph Boner reveal, but I will say that I enjoyed the episode more than I was disappointed in it, you know?
Right.
Like even if it wasn't like a huge reveal or Doctor Strange didn't come in like we thought he was or Magneto didn't come in or whoever, I still like you said thought that it was a great like tying up these character arcs between Wanda and Vision. It gave us like the possibility of like maybe their story isn't even over kind of thing, and they left us on a great cliffhanger, and they introduced, I feel like, a new character, Monica Rambeau, beautifully, and set up her next storyline beautifully.
Right.
So I I,
And so you
I
don't have to
enjoyed the
dive into
episode.
that backstory either, because you've seen her as a kid a little bit. You've seen her now here getting her powers. So the whole next movie, if she's in Captain Marvel 2, or even if she gets her own movie, is not going to be focused on, hey, how did she get her powers? Like so many of these movies are. I think the reason why
Mhm.
Black Panther is so successful is that we already introduced him in Civil War. So now we can just kind of follow along his journey and not show how did he become the Black Panther. And I mean, there's some elements of the myth and lore,
Yeah.
but it's not like, oh, how did he get his powers? Same with Peter Parker in a sense. It's like
Mhm.
Spider-Man: Homecoming is not about how he got his powers; it's how he fits himself into the group. So I think they're really figuring out how to do origin stories else in other films, so that way when they get their standalone films, we are no longer having to start from scratch with Bruce Banner and the gamma
Mhm.
radiation, and
Mhm.
we don't have to have Iron Man building his first suit for the first time. We can just dive into a story that's already taken off. And I
Right.
think that's where some of the movies like Ant-Man and even Iron Man itself, just other stories, don't have as much of a rewatchability for me, because it's like they all kind of feel the same in a sense in that respect.
Right.
They're unique in their own ways, but yeah. All right, so take us through the episode. Let's go. Let's hear your brief little tidbit synopsis.
All right, so my synopsis, episode 9, the series finale. Agatha battles with Wanda for her chaos magic. Hayward and the Agents of S.W.O.R.D. send White Vision in to destroy the other Vision, and Wanda decides the fate of Westview.
That was great. See,
Thank you.
perfectly to the point. And
I
that's
try to
it's such a
hit
big
all the key moments in just like 2 to 3 sentences just
right,
to get the ball rolling.
and it's such a big episode that it's like to condense it to 2 sentences is hard. So you did a good job. So
Thank
now
you.
let's go through the episode. I mean, if we have thoughts, we'll share along the way. But let's get our episode recap in, and then we can talk more about our thoughts on what we felt.
Amazing. Okay, so it was kind of harder for me this episode to break down like the scenes because there weren't like transitiony things happening. It was all
Right,
like it was so much of everything was happening at once. So it was like cut
and
away
the
to
same
here, cut
location.
to them kind of thing.
Right, they're all
So
in the same city center. It's just different areas of the city, so it's hard. We can kind of go
exactly.
like maybe 10-minute chunk by 10-minute chunk or something, or however you divided it, whatever you
I
feel is
tried I
best.
tried my best. So we
Good.
started right off the bat where we left off with episode 8 on the street with Agatha still holding back Tommy and Billy. Agatha and Wanda fight. Agatha has the ability to we find out that Agatha's main power is being able to absorb other people's powers that they use against her.
Yeah, we kind of
Um
got a little bit of that in the Coven scene of the last episode. How like they're
yeah,
all attacking her, and she's somehow able to like
absorb
project
it.
her back. Yeah,
Yeah. And even when I was watching that scene, I wasn't necessarily thinking that like, oh, she's taking in the power. I thought that she was just, spewing out her own abilities
right.
to just overpower them. But now
I
that
agree.
we now that we know, she's more powerful than we even thought.
Hmm.
Wanda takes Agatha out with a car. Where we catch a little glimpse of two boots that are sitting underneath the car, a little nod to
Yes.
the Wicked Witch of the East and the Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
which I
There's
thought
a
was
lot of
very
Wizard of
funny.
Oz references in this episode, like
Yeah.
a lot, which we'll
There
get
was
into later.
one that I caught on a previous episode, the one where we first um where Agatha first gets Wanda in the basement. She says something along the lines, and I was gonna bring this up because I thought I don't know, I thought that it would be like a cute little thing to mention. But Agatha said something to Wanda along the lines like, "Oh, your magic's no good here," which made me think of like something that Glinda would say to the Wicked Witch of the West, like, "Oh, like your powers are like no good here," like whatever
Yeah.
in Munchkin
Well,
Land, which I thought
and
was
you
funny.
have the killing the dog, like, and I killed your little dog too. Like
Oh
the
yeah,
I'll
you're
get you, my pretty.
right.
I mean, it's a witch thing. I mean, it's a common witch thing. It's not necessarily Wizard of Oz, but it's like this witch thing of like, I'll get you, like
And your
the
little
Hansel and
dog too.
Gretel
Yeah.
luring you into the forest. Yeah. So, I mean, I just think a lot of witches are just the same, and there's so much to be said about witches are so fascinating that I would love to just like dive deep into different like cinematic witches and wizards and magic and but
Can I interest you in a lesser known franchise? It's called Harry Potter. You might want to check it out, Dill. I know it's really
yeah.
niche. It's really
Hmm.
lesser known, but I think you'd like it.
It's got
Um
that Daniel kid in it, right?
yeah,
The kid
something.
from Swiss Army Man. Yeah, the corpse
And
that farts.
the Horns movie. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
White Vision, while Wanda rather's inspecting the car situation, checking out the boots, White Vision comes up from behind. They have this little moment where they're like, you think that they might like know each other, but White Vision is just programmed there to just eliminate Wanda, as he says, and like destroy the Vision. So he just picks her up by her head and starts almost like crushing in her skull almost.
Another Game of Thrones parallel, because in Game of Thrones, yeah, I mean, you haven't seen it yet, but so I won't spoil who and what and when it happens. But
Okay.
there is a moment where a character literally squeezes someone's head like a melon and pops it, like fully pops it. So,
That's
uh,
terrifying.
yeah, and seeing how that actor who got his head popped has really blown up in the past year. It's cool to see his origins. I know he's done other stuff before that, but see, I won't spoil what actor too. It'll be a complete surprise for Kelsey when she finally dives into Game of Thrones.
All right.
Yeah, but seeing this, there's an actor who's at the forefront of a lot of different series and movie news and all that stuff. That got his head squished. Oh man, what a great moment! Everyone, watch Game of Thrones. Even if you don't like the ending, the build up is still so good. So
All
there's my
righty.
little
So
advertisement for that.
thankfully, I was referring to him as the real Vision, even though he's not the real Vision. But the
Well,
real
he is.
Vision
Yeah.
swoops in and saves Wanda
Oh,
from the
got it.
White Vision. They start battling it out while Wanda takes on Agatha. Then we cut to Monica. We find out where Monica ended up from the end credit scene on episode 8, I think, or 7. I don't remember. But this is
Seven, seven.
7. This is
She was
where
not in
she
the last one. Yep.
yeah, because the last time we saw her was when she was about to go in the cellar. Pietro caught her, said Snooper's gonna snoop. So we find out that she has been kind of posting it up in Pietro's man cave in his attic. He's got a very very hippie like vibe to him. There's like lots of guitars everywhere. He has lots of stickers on his guitars. Like he seems like, a rock and roll kind of guy. So Monica tries to escape and Pietro uses his super speed to stop her and sends her flying back. She, knocks out again. We cut to the Visions battling. Uh, he says Wanda Maximoff must be destroyed. And White Vision goes to pull. Oh, we have this one moment in battle where White Vision goes to pull the Mind Stone out of Real Vision's head, kind of like a callback to what Thanos did in Infinity War, but Vision phases through, so they just like kind of they're having this very like there's like one moment where they're both just like putting their arms like in each other's arms because
Yeah.
they're able to just like
Yeah.
phase and like rematerialize. It was
Crazy.
very interesting. So then
Hmm.
we cut to Sword. Hayward is tracking both of the Visions. We see really quickly on a computer. He's like keeping track of like the vibranium levels, and then Jimmy Woo is escorted in handcuffs. And he warns Hayward that he will be caught for lying about what happened to the Vision's body, and that he's using it as a weapon. And Hayward's just kind of like, no, because once this ends, they're only going to know about the one body. They're going to think that Wanda had it the whole time, and I'm going to be commended for putting this whole thing to a stop. So you know what? You should actually join me because
Mm.
you're on like the wrong. You're playing for the wrong team here. Jimmy gets escorted out, and then he is able to break out of his handcuffs using a safety pin, to which he says "flourish." Nod to the second episode when Vision was playing the magician during the
Right. Oh,
talent show.
nice. Nice callback.
You didn't
Nice.
realize that?
No.
Oh, no, yeah, totally. He goes flourish. So
I just some things just go right over my head, you know.
Love Jimmy
And then
Woo.
some things that aren't even existent, like a fly, just stick out. So
Oh, this show's really been throwing us for a loop. Okay,
yeah,
so
it's a good
now
thing
we're
though.
in the center of town. The mailman drives Wanda's walking through the center of town. The mailman drives by, says his like catchphrase, I guess what it is. Don't shoot, I'm just the messenger. That's his his catchphrase. Agatha reveals the book, The Dark Hold, and that there's an entire chapter about the Scarlet Witch in this book. So we finally got an answer to what that magical orange glowing book was that we saw in her cellar in the previous episode.
Yep.
And then we find out that it's actually the book of the damned. And Wanda's trying to explain to her, like, I'm not what you think I am. No one ever taught me how to use these magics. I've never studied runes or spells or anything like
Right.
that. This is just has been 100% me. I've just been like, this is raw talent right here. This is not polished at all. Um, let's see. Okay, so then we figure out these are the details what Agatha gives us about the Scarlet Witch. She says that she's not born, she's forged. She
Mm.
has no coven, no need for incantation, and that her power exceeds the Sorcerer Supreme. The last time we heard about Sorcerer Supremes was in Doctor Strange, and that the Ancient One, Tilda Swinton, came from a line of Sorcerer Supreme. So if Wanda's powers exceeds the Ancient Ones, we know that she's quite powerful if she can take
I'd say
out
she's
the Ancient
the
Ones.
most powerful. I mean, realistically,
Yeah.
who could beat Wanda one on one? Realistically,
Honestly,
could Thanos even? No,
no,
because
because he
Thanos
needs
needed the
backup.
Time Stone. He
He
needed the
needed the
Time
Time
Stone the
Stone,
first time, and then the
and then
second time he needed everyone to start shooting at her to get her off.
yeah.
I think even I don't think she could be beat, and I think that's going to be interesting. I think they've almost backed themselves into a corner where it's like,
Mhm.
so what do we do now? It's like, so no
Right.
one can stop her. So what do we do now? And then I think that's where it comes to like the whole idea of like, well, it has to be some way of getting into her head and like, making her see the light of day, I guess, like in this series, at least, like kind of coming to terms with the grief is the only way to really like stop her, because you can't do it physically. You can't. There's no one. Even, I mean,
Mhm.
Mephisto, maybe once he comes, if he comes, but I really don't think anyone right now, Doctor Strange included, could beat her. So
Yeah. Honestly, I think Wanda might become her own worst enemy, but we can talk about that later on.
yeah.
So then Agatha starts bringing the residents of Westview like back to reality. The first person that she does is Dottie, and then we find out that Dottie's real name is Sarah, and she starts pleading with Wanda, saying, listen, I have a daughter. If you could just like make her a part of the story somehow, just so I can see her, just so I can hold her again, like whatever you want her, she'll be the school bully if you want. Like, I just want to, let her out of her room kind of thing. And then they all start coming like into consciousness, and they all start like begging her to like, at one point, Deborah Joe Rupp is like, if you won't let us go, just let us die. And I was like, this is very dramatic.
Yeah. So so they are aware that they are under a spell, but they are not conscious of what happened while they were under. Is that correct?
I'm under the impression that they're aware that they're under a spell, and like it's kind of no matter what, they can't fight it. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that they're conscious about the things that they're doing and they're saying. They can't fight it at all, so it's like
Right.
completely involuntary, everything that they do, to
Gotcha.
my understanding. That's my guess. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a resident of Westview. I couldn't tell you
Yeah,
firsthand.
I
All
couldn't.
I know
I
is
just
that
think it's interesting.
they get Wanda's nightmares, and they feel her grief, and
Mm-hmm.
it's too much for them, so they would
Well,
like
then
their
that
lives back.
yeah, that comes to the end where Monica says what she says, which we'll get to later. That's
Right.
just what I was thinking. I was like, so how much do they know? Because they don't know what she sacrificed for them, obviously, because she doesn't know. They don't know how close her bond with Vision was. But
Mhm.
like, do they legitimately not know what all went on? Like, did they not notice what Agatha was doing? All this stuff that I'm like, what do they know? What don't they know? And I guess it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but
Mm.
it's just interesting to think about.
So then we're back in Ralph's addict, and he says,
Addict,
what did I say? Did I say
addict,
like addict?
like
Like
drug addict.
drug addict? Okay,
Yeah,
addict. Sorry. We're
it's
back
okay.
in Ralph's attic, And Ralph says, "This is my man cave, a place to chillax while the missus is stirring up trouble." Monica starts ruffling through his things. She finds like a bill addressed to a person named Ralph Boner. She pulls out a headshot, and she says, "Oh, you're this guy. You're Ralph Boner." And he just goes, "Haha, Boner." That's his whole reaction to his identity being found out, probably because he's still wearing the necklace that we find out later Agatha's used to take control of his mind. He also asked, which I thought was interesting, he asked Monica, "You a fan of Steven Seagal?"
Oh.
Do you know who Steven Seagal is, Dill?
Yeah, he's an action movie star from the 90s. So,
Okay.
yeah, it
Because
could just be like a little throwback. I really don't know.
I mean, maybe that's just like the movie, like his favorite actor, I guess. But I did look into the movies that he's in just because I heard a name, I had to look into it. So,
Please.
these are the ones that I could find just like super quickly on IMDb. Under Siege, Above the Law, Hard to Kill, Out for Justice, Marked for Death, On Deadly Ground. They're all a very dark and like death is
Yeah.
involved. So I don't know if that's like hit just like a quirky little line that Ralph Boner had, or if they're just like telling like hinting at us for something for later about his
Yeah.
character maybe.
I'm
Who
not sure.
knows? Who knows
I
about
will
Ralph
I will
Boner?
say the interesting thing about the headshot is so because he has a necklace on,
Mhm.
he's obviously not under Wanda's hex. He's under Agatha's control.
Mhm.
So my question is, he must not be a resident of Westview then, because if he was in Westview, he would be under Wanda's hex. And I think, or he is a resident, but maybe he wasn't there first. Because the thing is, I don't know how if he was already in Westview, he'd be under Wanda's hex. So that when Agatha comes into Westview, can she just erase that from Ralph and make him hers, or is he under Wanda's hex and then under Agatha's hex? Like he's
Double hexed?
double hexed maybe. And so when she rips the thing off his throat, is it like, oh, I am Ralph Boner, but I'm still under Wanda's control? Or is it one of those things where it's like he was out of town and Agatha was, when he was coming back home, he was like, whoa, what happened to my town? And Agatha's like, oh, perfect, you're visiting here, because there's mail addressed to him. So it's this weird question of like, was he ever under Wanda's hex before Agatha showed up? Was Agatha there in Westview when Wanda, because I'm assuming Agatha got to Westview after Wanda made the hex. So it's just this weird timeline thing where I don't know where Ralph comes from. And that's where I think there's still that possibility that this could be Pietro, like this could be Quicksilver from
Yeah.
another universe, and she
Yeah.
literally put him in this Westview, maybe killed Ralph, and like made him take over the identity of Ralph. I don't know.
Well, we see that to my understanding, I thought that well, first of all, I thought that once, Wanda made the hex, no one could get through without like, going through the wall kind of like how Monica did the first time that she went through and
Right.
was like just put in the 70s kind of thing. Which I
So
guess
how did
we
Agnes get
could
in?
well, she's a witch, so she probably like
Okay. Yeah.
manufactured a way to get herself in there without,
Hmm.
going unscathed kind of thing. So
Oh
I was
wait, Agnes was able to snap everyone else out of their
that's what I'm
Wanda hex.
saying,
Oh, okay.
that
Yeah. Duh.
to my understanding, Agatha probably just like needed a place to live, found his house, took him out of Wanda's when she needed him. Maybe he was just, living as under Wanda's control for a while. She was like, "Oh, she has a dead brother. I'm going to bring him in and then use that. Who could I use? The guy who's living in the freaking attic upstairs. That's who I'm going to use."
Right.
And then
Okay,
she was
so
just
that
like,
makes sense.
you know,
Yeah, because at first I was like, how did he? If he's already in Westview, then he's under Wanda's hex. But then how is he also under Agatha's control? Because Agatha can snap them out of it. Perfect, great. I clarified it for myself. Thank you for
amazing.
helping me.
Oh,
I,
you're
I.
welcome.
That's the kind of thing that I think about during the show that like I still have been thinking about since the show that I haven't been able to figure out, and now I just
Listen,
cracked it. And now I feel like an idiot for not.
I have a lot of questions about Ralph Boner, so and I can't answer any of them. So we'll get there when we get there.
Okay,
But so yeah, Monica throws. I'm just gonna call him Pietro from now on because
you can call him
I'm
Ralph even. Like you don't need to even say the boner
well,
part.
it's not even just the boner part. It's
Bonaparte,
the fact that
Napoleon.
I don't want to accept that he's Ralph Boner and like not Peter Maximoff. So
But
Monica
here's the
throws.
thing.
Okay.
sorry, I know you want to get
No,
this out, but
no, I know.
Chris Evans was the Human Torch and Captain America. So why is it that like Evan Peters can't be Quicksilver in one universe and Ralph Boner in another? You know?
I feel like it's way because like I feel like it's just way too much of a coincidence.
Well, yeah. I
Like,
mean, I think this was
because
more
that
of a
movie,
marketing thing to like get people talking about it. But I don't think there was ever an intention of bringing in X Men.
I
I don't
know
know.
you don't, Dill. I know. And you know what? You might be right. So please don't rub it in, okay? Anyway, moving on. Monica throws him to the ground, realizes he
Getting
uses her
feisty
powers.
today.
Yeah, he goes, "Oh, meow, like this one's feisty, like whatever."
No,
Okay.
I'm saying you're feisty.
Oh, well, that's also a line that Ralph Boner says in the show. Something along those lines. I am feisty today, and you
This is
know
a funny
exactly why
episode already.
I'm feisty right now because I'm exhausted and hungover. So
Oh man,
the cat's
guys,
out
thank
of
you
the
for
bag this
listening. But I
episode.
mean,
It's Monday morning.
if you're a new listener, I hope this entices you to stay on board. If you're a past listener, I hope this made you realize that this is a very entertaining show. It's not just all the facts. It's all the us. It's all of us.
And I
Uh,
hope this doesn't scare you away either. I won't be hungover every Monday, just
yeah,
this one,
it's
okay?
fine. Hold on, let's just take a breath. Okay, we'll put our commercial break in here for podcast listeners right now. And now let's move on to the rest of the episode.
Okay. Monica throws him on the ground. She takes off the necklace, and Pietro says, "Oh God, please spare my life." And that's the last we ever see of Pietro. We cut to Tommy and Billy, who's kind of watching from their bedroom. Their dad fight their fake dad, their dad fight their white dad. I don't know. And then
Yeah,
Billy gets a vision of some scenes and some things that are happening that we haven't actually seen yet. So he is, in fact, predicting the future, and we're seeing the future along with him. So he goes, "Oh God, mom's in trouble. We got to go." Boom, we cut back to the center of town, Wanda and the Westview residents. They keep saying they feel her grief, they get her nightmares, and this, stresses her out so much. She's so overwhelmed that her powers just kind of explode out of her, kind of like they did how this all began with. They just
right,
explode out of her, and she unintentionally starts choking all of them. She uses her powers to release them from their holds, and Wanda chooses to start opening the hex because Agatha kind of antagonizes her and is like, "Heroes don't do this. They don't hold people hostage and torture them and make them live in make believe worlds.
right.
So you need to make a choice here, and you got to do it now." So we see that she starts opening the hex, but as soon as she starts doing that, Vision, Tommy, and Billy start fading with the hex, confirming that they would not be able to live if the hex didn't exist. That made me really, really sad, being that I've invested now in Tommy and Billy, and I really want them to have a future in the
Yeah,
MCU.
and that's where I'm wrong because last week I was like, well, she birthed them, so like they're technically hers, not the hexes. But it is confirmed, obviously, by the end, that there's an element of them going away with the hex. But then at the very end, there is some sort of inkling and possibility that they are around. So I really don't know the mechanics of it. I think
Right.
that's one of those things where Marvel's like not purposely telling you the answer because they don't want to give a definitive answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the logistics behind like witches giving birth
Hmm.
in hexes, but
But
I
at that moment,
will get.
when they were fading away, like Vision and then Tommy and Billy, when they were starting to like departicleize,
Yeah.
if that's a word, I thought that was where I was like, oh shit, so this is how it's gonna end, and I was like, so there's no way that these kids are gonna be here at the end of this, and it was heartbreaking because that
Oh,
moment doesn't come for another half hour, but inside you're like, oh shit, so they're gonna have to go some way because there's no way they're gonna end this with the hex still being there, you know?
right. So the walls
Yeah,
start opening. Hayward says, "Let's move in." The sword vehicles start driving into Westview. The Visions go back to fighting. White Vision overpowers Vision. Like as they do that classic thing where they're like laser beams are flying at each other, and then like you see one color overtake the other color.
right.
So we see that White Vision overpowers. He's stronger than the Vision created out of Wanda. Vision, Tommy, and Billy. Oh, I already said that. Sorry, lost my place in my notes. Um, and as they start to disappear, Wanda makes the choice to close the hex. She goes, "No, no, no, I don't want to lose my family right now. Agatha starts firing back at Wanda and her family. She makes a force field, which only allows Agatha access to more of her powers. The sword agents surround them, and they kind of take this stance very similar to the Incredibles. I don't know if you
Oh yeah, it's
saw
it's
that.
even the same. I think it's the same configuration
Yeah,
of mother, father, and then kids. I think it's like the same exact. Obviously one they're both sons, but like there is a very clear. It's a very clear homage, and we
yeah,
saw that's the name of the movie playing at the movie theater in the Halloween episode was The
right.
Incredibles. So I think it's very much a purpose and intentional. Oh, I can't speak today,
Could
but
have also accepted purposeful. You were on the right track with that word as well. Would have
yeah, I
accepted.
was I was gonna say purposeful, and then I was like intentional is a better word, and then I didn't finish the word purposeful, but then I started to say the word intentional, but then I was back on purposeful, so I said intentionful. It
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
mess.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
The Visions go back to fighting. Vision says, the White Vision is just like a program right now. Like he doesn't, he's not in touch with his emotions or anything. So he's just like, I have a job today. I have a mission. It's to eliminate you and Wanda. But Vision says, I'm not the true Vision though. I'm only a conditional Vision, which makes White Vision say, I require elaboration, like whatever his phrase is. Um, Wanda has this great line where she looks to Tommy and Billy and says, "Boys, take care of the military. Mommy will be right back." So Tommy and
A
Billy,
line you'll only hear in this show.
yeah,
A
exactly.
line you will only hear in the Marvel universe.
Um, so Wanda goes to get Agatha, Billy, and Tommy have this great moment where they're teamed up using their powers to take down the sword agents. Tommy uses his quick speed to retrieve the guns, while Billy gets inside of their heads with his telepathy. Um, and we even see that Tommy grabs one of the hats off of the sword agents, which is kind of an homage to what Peter Maximoff does in Days of Future Past during that iconic kitchen scene. If you
Mm.
haven't seen the X-Men movies, you're confused. And if you want to still watch them, even though they might not be connected to this universe at all, feel free.
Kelsey did it. She did it in how long? Like 4 days, 5 days?
Like literally like 3 days.
Yeah,
Uh,
you watched them all,
yeah, I did. Yeah.
and none of them have any sort of purpose in this show at all. But hey, you watched some good movies, some bad ones, but some good movies. So
But
it's a
you know what?
bittersweet thing.
Honestly, now I'm glad that I did it because Deadpool has seriously like become like one of my favorite superheroes. Like I
Awesome.
I
Good.
love Wade Wilson a lot. I also love Ryan
Hmm.
Reynolds, but Deadpool, like
Yeah.
he's up there for me. Love that guy. What a
Yeah.
fun character. Okay, moving on. We'll get to X-Men, I'm sure, during at with this podcast at some point.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some off season. I'm trying to find like a good 3 weeks of off season where we can like do like the older X Men, the middle like James McAvoy X Men, and then like the newest stuff slash Deadpool. I'm waiting to try to find a 3 week period to do that. But here we only have a week between two shows, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna jump right into Loki. So the hope is maybe like later on in the year, maybe late summer, we'll be able to squeeze it in. But then we have What If coming. So what if that gets in the way? Who knows?
I
We
like
will
that
get to
little
X
play
Men
on
eventually.
words. I like that
Thank
little
you.
play on words,
Thank
Dill.
you. Thanks.
Hayward just goes to shoot at Billy and Tommy just ruthlessly, like what a jackass. And Monica runs.
It's like
Monica,
you're gonna shoot at a woman and two kids. Like, come on, dude. Like,
like they're 10 years old. Like what?
right?
Anyway,
Like, shooting at anyone is bad. But like, I get like you have an
children.
agenda, and like in your opinion, you're the hero. Like, we know you're a dick, but like, you still think this is for the better good. But like, kids, man, come on,
Yeah, I draw the lines
come
at
on.
puppies and kids, I think. That's where I draw the lines. Cats,
Oh,
fair
puppies
game.
and kids
Take
and
out a
cats. Oh
puppy
my.
cat. I don't care.
Oh, you're
Cat.
gonna have a lot of comments about that.
Listen, I don't care. I don't like cats. They don't like
Mm.
me. They don't like people. Can we all just stop pretending that cats are good companions? They're not.
I mean, they're not as friendly as dogs all the time. At times, they can be friendly, but then they do have their moods where they're not friendly. Whereas dogs, I don't think there's ever a mood where my dogs will ever not be in the mood to cuddle and play.
Right.
But
So luckily, Monica runs in. She uses her powers to absorb the bullets being shot at Tommy and Billy. We see that she's like actually redirecting them so they're just falling on the ground. And then one stray bullet escapes her, but Billy is able to catch it with his abilities. And just as Hayward is about to retreat back into his truck, da 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 da, the savior of the whole episode, Darcy comes flying through in the funnel cake truck to take out Hayward and just says, like,
Ah,
enjoy prison, and that's
yeah,
all
have
we
fun in
see
prison. Yeah,
the whole
I
time.
am so disappointed. That is the one thing. Like, overall, we'll say at the end. Overall, I got my hopes up for things that didn't happen, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that. I love this episode regardless. There were three issues I had with this episode, but the other two we'll get to later. One of them was Darcy not being there. I mean, she has been an instrumental part to this story, and I get she's not the focus, but to give her one line, if it was a scheduling thing, fine. But like, you don't think you could have just like had her film those scenes a little earlier? Like, you could have had close-ups on her. There's a way to still put her into this episode, even if she's not available for the end of the shoot. Like,
Right.
it just seemed weird that like she just was only in that 1 second. If it was a scheduling thing, you can film her scenes earlier, like in front of a green screen, and just plug her in. That's what they did with Captain Marvel in the post-credit scene for where she meets the Avengers, because they were still doing screen tests. They were like, "Here, you're just gonna say these lines. We're not even telling you what character you are." Like, they could have done that. They could have put her on a green screen. I don't know why they only gave her one line here. It was sad, but
Yeah, yeah, disappointed in Darcy because she
justice
turned
for
out to be
Darcy.
one of our favorite characters this series. So,
Yeah.
so then we go back to the Visions, and the Visions are having a very philosophical conversation about a ship of the Theasis, or I
Theseus. Yeah,
Theseus.
it's such a on brand
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
It
for
was
sure.
so on brand. Like, it was exactly what I wanted from a non-physical standoff between these
Yeah.
two guys,
No, it was great. And they're basically like the gist of their conversation is like this ship, if you take away all that it's made up of and you slowly insert it with new parts and new scaffolding and all that, is it still the same ship? And White Vision is kind of having this dilemma where he's like, no, it's not the same ship. No, both are the ship. So I think it's kind of just a way for Real Vision to get him to see like neither one of us, like we're both the true Vision, but then at the
Right,
same time neither of us are the true Vision. So really,
right.
what's your mission here, kind of thing. Um,
And that's when he's like, "I am the Vision," and shoots
yeah,
back up.
he just like flew off into the sunset, and we said, "Bye, White Vision. Thanks for
I think
playing."
it's after. Well, also he has like that moment where he like taps into his head, and he's like, "I'm
Yeah,
changing your eye colors."
yes, I was
Yeah,
just about to say Vision allows
yeah.
White Vision access to all of his memories involving Wanda, so we kind of just get like a nice montage of all their moments from Age of Ultron to Civil War to Infinity War to Endgame. Actually, not Endgame because Vision was
No, Vision's not there.
definitely not in Endgame. Excuse me. So then we're inside Agatha's head. Oh, right. So Wanda, we make a callback to Agatha. Oh my goodness, we make a callback to Age of Ultron, where Wanda, does that thing where she just like uses her magic to like get inside all of the Avengers' heads, and what scene I'm talking about. Thank you, Jill. Thanks for nodding confirmation. This is a podcast, so you should also vocalize your
Oh
confirmation.
yes, yes. Let me say it one more time for your audio listeners. Yes.
Thank you. So we're inside of Agatha's head. We are back at the scene where she took out her coven and her mother, and Wanda's trying to explain to her like we're nothing alike because Westview was not intentionally to be a bad place. Like I was never out to hurt those people. Like you killed these witches like on purpose. Like you are a vengeful evil person. All of the witches start coming to life around them, and they all start attacking Wanda because they all recognize her to be the Scarlet Witch. They try to tie her up against the pole, but of course she's just too damn powerful. She blasts herself away, and they blast back into um reality, back into
Wow.
Westview.
Yeah.
So Wanda breaks free and says oh, okay. So obviously the entire time Agatha's goal is to get her magic. They once they're back into Westview, Wanda says, "Take it, I don't want it." And she starts sending blasts to all the blasts that she can to Agatha, some hitting the walls of Westview, which we don't find out are important until the end of their fight, where we find out that Wanda was putting runes on the hex the whole time. So that when Agatha went to use Wanda's magic that she had finally obtained, she wasn't able to do it because in any given space, only the witch who casts the runes can perform magic. I'm so I didn't even write that down. I just knew that from memory, and
Yeah,
I'm psyched
this
for
is
myself.
this is the most exciting like reveal of the episode for me. Was this like whole like full circle, like, hey, you know that thing we said about in the last episode that was like not super important, it's really important. And when that whole reveal comes with all the runes showing up, I was like, oh, okay, I get it, she's smart. And it was one of those moments where Agatha's like, fuck. Like,
Yeah,
and she even says later, she's like, well done, sweetie, or something. She says along those lines, like, you good girl. I think she calls her good girl. She's like, you learned, you're smart. And she's
yeah,
like, I have nothing to respond to you with. Like, that's it. You're
yeah.
smart. You outsmarted me.
So then Wanda fully transforms into the Scarlet Witch, and we see that she takes on the figure that past Wanda saw in the Mind Stone. So it was kind of her seeing this prophecy of herself.
Mm-hmm.
Wanda decides Agatha's punishment, which is to be trapped in Westview as this kind of cheesy, nosy neighbor character that she invented her for herself, and she strips her of all her powers. And she says, "Well,
Yeah.
one day you might need me." And Wanda says, "Well, then I'll know exactly where to find you," which I think
Right.
might be teasing, some later on
Yeah.
stories maybe down the line for Agatha. Maybe this is not
Yeah.
the last we see of Agatha.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think you said like stripped her power. She didn't exactly strip her power. It's just she kind of put this like fake persona over her where she cannot access her power unless Wanda gives her the permission and like releases her from this trance. And I think it's one of those things where she might need her later down the line, but there's almost something sad about her having to live her entire life as this person and be totally unaware. And that's where I kind of had a question earlier, like how much are the Westview citizens aware that they're under the spell? But I think because this is such a direct, intentional, like mind uh disguise type thing. I think Agnes has no idea she's Agatha Harkness. She just thinks she's Agnes, and it's sad because like you can kind of see like the sorrow in the eyes,
Hmm.
and Agnes doesn't even know who she is, and it's it's a villain, but you kind of feel bad in a way, that
Yeah, a little
this person is now having to spend the entire life as this fake Agnes, and yeah, it was a good way to get rid of her without getting rid of her completely.
right,
I think
exactly.
some of the traps Marvel falls into is like once you kill off a character, you kill him off. It's hard to get him back
Unless it's Loki.
unless you're Loki. Yep, jinx. Unless it's Loki, so or Thanos, where you can like go back and get a past version and bring him back. But even then, it's like it's not the same version. Like Thanos, when he says he doesn't even know who Scarlet Witch is, it's like or
Right.
who Wanda is. It's like he literally doesn't because this is not the same Thanos. So it's not even the same thing. Like I think we'll talk about that next week with our villains ranking. Spoiler alert, but like some villains, it's sad because we're not going to get to see them again, at least in that way. Like Killmonger's dead. And like he has
Oh,
such a good arc, but then it's like you kill him and now it's like you can't bring him back. And I know there's rumors where he's gonna come back, but it's like he'll never come back the same way. It'll either have
mhm.
to be this thing where they have some sort of magic to revive him, but why would they? Unless it's a dark magic. And B, or if it's a flashback or another timeline, like it's sad. Like we're not gonna get some of these characters again because they kill him off. Whereas here, Agnes, it's like chances are we won't see Agatha, not at least not for a long time, but it's not completely over. Instead, there might even be something worse to having to live your life completely as this prisoner in this other body than dying at all. So it's a really interesting fate for her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like it's like going to prison.
Yeah.
It's like it's
Some
literally
people say they'd rather die than live in prison and
exactly.
regret, but that's the whole point of prison is so you can live with your mistakes rather than just that's why I think it's more important to have this character survive. Agnes is because now she can like almost live in her sorrows rather than just yeah it's
Right,
it's it's
exactly.
complex. Yeah.
So then we have this moment of realization with Wanda where she realizes that this is the end of Westview and nothing will ever be the same. So the family Vision, Wanda, Tommy, and Billy walk back to their house. They tuck in Tommy and Billy. They say they're basically having this heartbreaking scene where they're saying goodnight to them and how much they love them, but they know the entire subtext of this whole scene is like goodbye. Like we will not be seeing you again, or Wanda won't be seeing them again. And they're just counting down basically their last moments as the hex is dissolving throughout Westview. Wanda and Vision say goodbye, and they kind of have this moment where they say like, but we've said goodbye before, so naturally we'll say hello again, which I think might be teasing the possibility of their story continuing on in some way, shape, or form. Maybe, I mean, White Vision's out
Yeah.
there, so you
Well,
never
yeah,
know.
that's another thing we haven't talked about yet is where's White Vision, and I think it was interesting that they kept it open ended. I would have liked a little bit more closure, like maybe seeing him like leave Westview, so it's like, oh, okay, so he's gone off. But I think because you just see him shoot up in the sky, it's like, where is he? And I was waiting for them to bring it up again, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because like he's like, what's the next step? It's like now I'm a memory brought alive. What is the next step after that? And I think a lot of people are saying the next step is like, they're gonna bring him back some other way, and it's like no. I think he's basically saying we'll see each other again, meaning it may be in death when we're both dead, or it's like that whole thing of you'll always have me here. And
Mhm.
like that's how you'll have me again, is just as a part of you. And I think she even acknowledges that when he asks, what am I? And she's like, you are the part of the Mind Stone that lives inside me. And I
Mhm.
think that's a really big thing, is it's like now she's kind of finally come to her grief where she can finally be comfortable, or not comfortable, but at least be at peace with the idea that he will always be a part of her even if he's not necessarily with her, and it's
Mhm.
sad.
I gotta be honest. I was sobbing throughout this entire exchange. I'm sobbing.
Yeah.
Tommy and Billy, my heart,
uh
my heart's breaking.
and what's the
Also,
line Wanda says?
thank
Thank you
you
for
for
choosing me.
choosing me to be your mother.
Oh, oh my god. Cuz
Heartbroken,
yeah.
man.
Mm,
Heartbroken. And then I'm also heartbroken because like I'm mostly hoping for like the Vision to return in some capacity, just because like I don't want to say goodbye to Paul Bettany. He's
right.
lovely. He's
Mhm.
lovely to have around.
Right, and he
Um
will be back. Like you said, like White Vision, they're not just gonna like send him off and never have him return.
right.
He's gonna be back in some facet, but again, it's not the same Vision. Even if he has those memories, it's not the same, you know.
Right.
And I just think it's one of those things where like this version of Vision, I really don't think we'll see again, except for maybe a flashback. I really genuinely don't see it again. I think now, you know, I think the priority is maybe for her, we'll talk about this at the end, to find her kids, but I think she's at peace with the idea that Vision's dead. The thing with the kids is like they never died, they just disappeared, whereas Vision, he already died. And that was his will. That's what he wanted, was to be dead. So I
Mhm.
think it's different between the kids and Vision, how she goes forward now in coping and grieving. Yeah.
Griefing.
Grieving.
So
General
the
Griefus.
hex finally dissolves out. It takes us back to seemingly it looks like, the last moment where uh, you know, like no time has passed kind of thing. But I think time has passed. But we're
Yeah.
back with Wanda. She's back in the outfit that she was in when she first left Sword and traveled to Westview. So she makes her way back into the center of town, where she encounters Monica. They kind of have this nice moment where they make amends with each other. So the first time I watched this episode, I'm crying throughout the entire goodbye scenes between the family. The second time I watched this episode, the line that killed me the second time, that made me cry, was when Monica told her, if given your power and given, what did she say? Like, given your power and given something else, I would have
The
the
circumstances or something.
given the opportunity and given your power, I would have brought my mother back. I know that. And I just like, oh,
Mm.
oh my
Yeah,
god, that
and it
killed me.
and it kind of connects them because in the beginning there's it's always been a connection. She's
Yeah.
the first mom that she clicks with, aside from Agnes, obviously, who was already her neighbor. But at that gathering with Dottie, Geraldine's the one who's reached out to her, and she's like, "Hi, I'm Geraldine," and it's like from the beginning there's been this connection. So
Yeah.
now to see like that at the end, she's like, "No, I get it. Like I can't hate you because I would have done the same thing," and it's interesting because it does really humanize Wanda and really kind of forgive what she's done to the audience too. It's to tell the audience, like, listen, like, think about it. If you were in her shoes, what would you do? And if you have that power, I mean, hell yeah. I mean, like I lost my dog about a year ago. My best friend about a year ago, a few weeks ago, we celebrated the anniversary of his
Mhm.
passing, and it's like I bring my dog back for another year. I
Yeah.
would, because like that's like the closest thing to tragedy I've experienced in the past year. Uh, Fortunately, I haven't experienced anything more than that, but like that's a recent tragedy. If I could have another year, yeah, I would. It's
Mhm.
always that idea. Like, what would you do if you had power to literally bring someone back to life? Like that's the one thing. The genie in Aladdin, he says the three things he can't do. He can't make anyone fall in love, can't kill anybody, and he can't bring people back from the dead. Because obviously that would be your first instinct. It would always be to bring someone back. That is
Right.
the one thing you cannot manipulate yourself. Like you can kill someone on your own. You can fall in love. You can find love with you can do all you can to make someone love you back. I mean, obviously there's not there might not be a reciprocation, but you can try. You can try to do those things. You can try to kill someone or try to fall in love with someone, but you cannot physically try to bring someone back.
Mhm.
So there's that thing where it's like that is going to be everyone's first instinct if they have that unlimited power. So I get it. I get it.
So now, then the last moment we see is Wanda just, takes back into her Scarlet Witch outfit. She just soars out of Westview as to not get arrested, I'm sure. Um, So then we're in our first end credit scene. Jimmy
Hmm.
Woo and the FBI agents roll into Westview. They're arresting Hayward and the rest of the Sword agents, and they just start investigating things. He goes, "We're gonna have, evidence, sweeping for evidence, and all that stuff." And an FBI agent walks over to Monica and says, "You're needed in the theater." She walks into the theater. The FBI agent following close behind her, and she reveals herself to be a scroll and says that, "Oh, I'm an old friend of your mother's," or like something like that, and that you're requested. um they're requesting you. And she goes, "Where?" And the scroll just simply points up. So hopefully
Who
not
do you
a
think this
scene.
is? Let's speculate right now. Who do you think it is? I think there's an obvious answer, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, who the friend of her mother's is? Nick Fury, I think she's talking
Yeah,
about.
okay. That's who
Okay.
I thought it was too. Now, the question a lot of people have been saying is like, is he flying? Is he in his ship? No, I picture it as it's a traditional old school movie theater where you have a balcony and he's like up on the balcony, like looking down, like, yo, what's up? I know what's up. Um,
Oh, you think he's there in Westview?
oh yeah, that's what I took it as. Like
Oh,
she looks up and
I thought she was just talking about like space. Like,
oh, maybe I think because
where
she looks
their
up and smile.
orbiting shelf
Hmm.
is. Oh, you think
See,
Nick Fury was in the theater?
yeah, like I think she looked up and literally like saw him standing there on the balcony. Because at first I was like, I was first thinking, oh, it's Captain Marvel, but then I went back and realized she said he. So I was like, okay, so it's not Captain Marvel. I thought at first, because the first time I watched it, I was like, oh my god, that's Captain Marvel. Because she looked up, I was like, Captain Marvel's flying right above her. But then I went back and listened, and I heard the word he, the
Yeah.
pronoun. So I was like, okay, so it's not Captain Marvel. And I was like, oh, what if she's looking up at Nick Fury? And then I was like, well, why is she looking up? And then I was like, it could be a balcony. He's standing up there, but it could just be her staring off into space. But I think because she like kind of looks and then smirks, it's almost like I feel like he was standing right there. But who knows?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe
Interesting. Interesting. Okay,
because
so
like I
then
feel like Nick Fury, whenever he welcomes someone to the Avengers Initiative, it's always like that personal greeting.
yeah,
So
you're right. Um so then we have our second end credit scene where we are in the mountains. We zoom in on a cottage where Wanda has settled down for herself,
it's
and
the theme. It's the Hawkeye. It's the Thanos. It's always like this just quaint
she's found her
Iron
Garden of
Man.
Eden to settle down in, to
Yeah, it's
retire
like this.
in.
It's this quaint little middle of nowhere, secluded, off the grid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we zoom in to her making herself a cup of tea. We pan into a bedroom, and we see that her physical form is actually just walking around making her the tea, while her spiritual form is reading that book of the damned. To which I went, "Villain?"
Okay. Well. Okay. Um.
Oh,
Hold
and
on.
then the last
I have an
oh,
I have an emergency text I have to respond to. I'm sorry. I was just not paying attention for a sec. I will be right back.
okay, I guess I will talk to myself. No, and then the last moments we hear before we get into theories is we actually hear Tommy and Billy calling to Wanda.
I'm back. Sorry, I just literally it's dinner time when we're recording this, and I just needed to tell my mom what to order me from the place we're ordering dinner at. Go support your local
That was the
businesses.
emergency.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's dinner time, and
I
she was
understand.
about to order, so she was like,
What are you
"Dylan, what do you
ordering?
want?"
What
And
are
we're
you
just getting
ordering?
pizza and pasta and stuff, but
From Vinny's?
yes,
Vinny's is a classic at your house. You guys always get Vinny's.
it's
I'm
great because it's big portions. You can save half of it for leftovers the next
yeah,
day.
100%.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go. And
I
and
love
like
Vinny's.
the pizza's great, but sometimes you're in the mood for some pasta or a meatball sub or something.
No, I agree. I
Um,
agree. I agree. I
yeah.
agree.
So I just needed to get that little text in. Sorry.
It's okay. I was saying while you were gone that the last things we hear is Tommy and Billy calling to Wanda's spiritual form. So we might not have seen the last of Tommy and Billy either, which
Yeah.
makes my heart very happy as well. Let's get into theories, Dill.
Well, the thing with the Darkhold, you were saying it's like a bad thing. Like I get it. Like it derives from a bad thing. Like it's always said to have been a bad thing, but I think she realizes she wants to use her powers for good. I think it's more of
Okay.
just her educating herself on like how to approach her powers. Because like if I had a book telling me how to use my powers, I'd read it, and even if I didn't intend on it being for bad. So I think she was, yes, reading this bad book, but I think she was doing it because she wanted to learn more about her powers than like trying to seek some sort of vengeance or evil intention. Or it might be something where she's not meaning to be evil in her methods, but then she ends up doing something evil because of it.
Yeah.
Like almost like she's being seduced to the dark side. I don't know. I just feel like
Seduced to the dark side.
this show did a good job establishing that she did not want to use her power for evil anymore. She was past that. She lets the residents go. She like lifts the hex because she realizes it's wrong. I think this was a really good growth for Wanda. So to have her then go into a villain-esque role, I just don't see it. Like it doesn't make sense with the
I
story. But
understand
I
that.
get
I
it.
understand. I
I think
understand what
she's
you're
just done so
saying.
much good growth. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Especially in this last episode, I feel like this is when she did like all of her growing, you know. This was the character development we kind of all been
The
waiting
last
for.
two. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
I think that yes, making her a villain would kind of be like, well, why would you do that when she just got over doing something villainous? But I think that the fact that we hear Tommy and Billy calling out to her might be hinting at like she might be doing. I think the next time we see Wanda, she is going to be trying to do anything that she can to get her kids back. And I think that
Yeah.
that might bring in Mephisto, maybe. You know, I can't believe we're still talking about this guy. I
No.
personally think, and I saw another guy on the internet bring in the Chthon character that I was talking about last week with you. And I'm not the only one who thinks it, so that makes me think that I'm a little less crazy and that,
Right.
it
You're not
might be
crazy.
more
It's
of a
just I
possibility.
think all the speculation will let us down if we're wrong. So I'm just not even gonna bother. But I do
But I
think
like
that
speculating.
okay, as long as you don't get upset about it. Like because I try to just be like brush it off. Like this is what it is. This is what it is.
Well, listen. I like to do that too. You know me. Like before we saw Endgame and you guys all wanted to theorize what was going on, I didn't want to be a part of that conversation at all because I just wanted to let it be what it was. I don't mind speculating as long as what the TV show, what the writers and the producers do makes sense for the characters and is equally as exciting as what we've kind of all been, transpiring. Because I've never really been in the situation where like me and like the internet and like my friends have all conjured up a way more interesting, solution to the
Right.
events than the actual writers did themselves. Like I've never been like really let down or disappointed in a way where I was with like, just some elements of WandaVision.
I
You know what
think
I'm
also
saying?
there's a different, yeah, I know what you're saying. I think there's a difference between speculation versus expectation. Like I think speculation is good where it could be like this could happen, but then
Yeah,
expectation is when people are owed something, and that's where it
right,
gets toxic in this
right.
community. Is the idea of, oh, well, we were supposed to get Mephisto, why didn't he show up? You weren't supposed to get anything. You
Yeah.
thought you were gonna get something, but you didn't. So what? Like I think that's the same thing with the Quicksilver thing. I get you're upset about it, but like part of me is like that's what we expected, but or that's what we speculated. It's not what we should have expected.
Right.
Obviously there is an expectation. Like we want to get we want to get closure about Wanda's arc in this story. That's an expectation because I think it's something necessary. Like we are expecting closure. But a detail like a character that has not been introduced is not necessarily an expectation. That's more of a speculation. So I think towing that line is going to be is going to really be important going forward to all these other shows. I think this is a more speculation based show than something like the Falcon and Winter Soldier will be. Obviously, we know who our villain is off the bat, even if you don't. But you will find out in the first episode who your villain is off the bat.
Okay,
You
cool.
will know the premise, the general premise, just by watching the show. Whereas here, it was like you watch the trailer, you really don't know what the general premise is going to be. So part of the fun has been trying to speculate as we went along. I think people who really get their hopes up too much are then let down, and that makes sense. And honestly, it's fair to, because you get your hopes up. But I think I always try to say all this could not happen,
Right.
and so I'm always prepared for it. But I think some people aren't necessarily prepared to be wrong. And then when they are saying online how confident they are that Mephisto's coming, so I know some
Mhm.
TikTok accounts are like, so this is happening, and it's like, if you're wrong, you just look like an idiot. That's why we
Yeah.
always say on the show, we are very much theorizing. We are
Right.
speculating. We don't know what's going to happen. And we're not the hugest comic book fans either. So there's no source material to say that was right or that was wrong. It's not like Harry Potter where it's all written out for you. So like if they change something, it's very visible and noticeable. They have always gone off slightly from the comics. Game of Thrones, same thing. They've always strayed from the books. There are elements that are the same, but all in all, it's all separate. So I think the fun in WandaVision was the speculation, but now looking back, now that we can't really speculate because it's done, I think going back, it'll just be enjoying the character arc and what they have given us and really enjoying that more.
Right.
So I was a big fan of the season. I just was a big fan. I think the episodes,
Oh,
the
yeah.
actual structure of the sitcoms, they did get stale after a little while in terms of like, okay, I get it. What else? And I think some of the episodes fell into the trap of you're setting up too much to then just have a big reveal at the end. I thought the episode where Quicksilver does show up, there was a lot about just like the whole Sparky thing, which was good, but it was just kind of like, what else? And then they finally had that big reveal at the end, which was cool. But then you have episodes like the last episode and this episode where from the start there's just so much, and you get this whole like so much is going on. And that's part of the reason I said I had three things that I didn't like about this episode. One being the treatment of Darcy, just not existent.
Mhm.
B, the CGI. I've always felt like you have such good CGI technology, and sometimes it looks really good, like with Thanos and with like Vision himself. There's some makeup there, but a lot of it is CGI. So then when you have these big globs of energy, it's almost like the Harry Potter wand stuff where it's like it worked once, but then when it's just like people throwing energy back and forth, it kind of does look a little fake, and it does look like I've seen it all before. And I think the fights themselves need to get a little bit more creative. I think Winter Soldier, the reason it's so revered is because the fighting itself is so well choreographed and so well designed.
Right.
And Deadpool, even like you said, like the fight choreography is so good that like when you have just fights of people throwing random shit at one another, like random globs of energy, it's like, all right, we get it. So the CGI in action was something I was like a little underwhelmed by. I think it didn't really impress me. It wasn't anything innovative. And then the third thing was, um, oh my god, I lost my train of thought. It was, oh, the episode just felt rushed. I think a lot of it felt
Okay.
rushed. I think the last third, like you said, you cried that whole last third because of her saying goodbye. That took its time, and that was the most impactful moment for me. Was
Mhm.
seeing the story really just it took its time. I was honestly thinking that the conversation with Vision would have been shorter because I felt like, oh, okay, they've been moving a mile a minute. So to see them step back and really take their time, I was really impressed with that. I wish the beginning of this episode wasn't as rushed. So that's all. Otherwise, I think this episode was great. I think this series was good. It's one of my favorite things Marvel has done,
Mhm.
uh, at least in this universe. Because I'm such a Sam Raimi Spider-Man boy. Uh, to to the death. To I will die on that hill. That is still the best thing Marvel has done to me. At least especially those first two movies. And Spider Verse is also another thing that I think is one of the best things Marvel has ever done. But in
Mhm.
terms of the MCU itself, I think this is definitely one of the best things they've ever done. I think this is next to maybe Endgame and Infinity War for me as like my favorite Marvel thing. So,
Yeah.
what are your
I
thoughts on the overall season and the episodes and everything?
thoroughly enjoyed it. I think
Mhm.
there's just one more thing that I have to address. I'm gonna bring up this guy one more time, my good
Do
old
it.
pal Ralph Boner. Um, there's I'm not buying really much into this. I will preference it with that, but I did see a theory that people had there that is people's like one last hope. It is like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of theories at this point that this is Quicksilver and it's not just this random dude, Ralph Boner, and that it might actually end up being Peter, is that people have been theorizing that Ralph Boner is the guy, or Peter Maximoff is the guy in the witness protection program that Jimmy Woo was sent to investigate to begin with, and that his alias has been Ralph Boner. See, I first heard this and I was like, okay, let's think about this logically. If Peter Maximoff, a character from or a person from another like universe, like a parallel universe, comes into this one, why does he need to be in the witness protection program? What would get
Right.
him in the witness protection program? Because no one would know him in this new multiverse, right?
Right.
And also, what really throws me off is the fact that the Ralph had powers. He had super speed, that he used.
That might have been an Agatha thing though, where
So
she
you
gave it
think
to him.
Agatha gave him super speed? You think she has the ability to like give people powers?
Well, you saw she was the one controlling him at the door during the Agatha all along thing. I think she was the one who was like gave him the powers. I don't know, and that's another thing where like it could be the X-Men tie-in. I think it was a casting nod. I think it was a wink to be like, haha, you think it's the X-Men guy, but it's no, it's just Evan Peters. We thought he was good for this role, and we
Right.
just wanted to like play with the audience. I don't know. It's a good question. I have no idea.
And also,
I'm
sorry. And also, last thing, like Jimmy Woo, I'm basically just like going through like debunking this theory, even though like I would love for it to be true and for him to be Peter Maximoff, but I don't think that this is true, because Jimmy Woo sees him on like in the show, like, right, they see fake Peter, and Darcy says she recast Pietro like crazy, and he doesn't say anything like, oh, that's the guy in the witness protection program. But I guess maybe legally he can't say that he's the guy in the witness protection program, because that's the whole point of the witness protection program.
Mhm.
So that's like another thing that I thought of. But anyway, that's kind of the last like theory
Yeah.
speculating thing that I wanted to
Yeah.
address.
Because I
Needed to
think it
get that off
does.
my chest, because I definitely wanted to hear your thoughts about that,
Yeah,
Dylan.
I think in terms of Wanda and Vision's story, it's a good wrap up of their relationship, but I think it does open some doors for obviously Doctor Strange. We're going to see Wanda in that. I think a lot of it's going to be about her trying to get to her kids, and I think the reason the multiverse is going to come into it is because her kids are trapped in some other dimension, and I think that's kind of where Doctor Strange is going to come in, because I don't think they're obviously not in Westview anymore, so I think it's that's going to be the way they tie in the multiverse. I think the other question is the White Vision stuff sets up some possibility for later. Maybe he'll appear in Eternals. We don't know. And then the only other question would be the witness protection program thing. But even then, it's like that could have just been literally missing persons, as in like one of the Westview residents was reported not there, and it's because they were under this spell and this hex, and that's just what he was called in for. And it turns out that, oh, it wasn't just one person, it was the whole community. I don't even know. I'm not reading too far into it, because this is the ending and that's what we got. And anything further speculatory, is that a word? Anything to further speculate is all going to be in other projects, not just WandaVision. So WandaVision,
Right.
what they gave us, I was satisfied with. I think it'll be fun to rewatch it. Yeah, I don't even know how I'd rank these episodes, but this finale is somewhere near the top. Again, like I said, it was a little rushed. Well, some of the CGI didn't look great, but I think overall the ending was so strong, and I do think we got some fun moments with Monica and the kids, when that they have that whole scene with the bullets and it passing through Monica, and then the kid Billy catching it, or is it Tommy? I don't know. Billy catching it. I think a lot of that stuff was so strong. So let's get into some Easter eggs. Do you have any?
I think I kind of like went along. The ones that
Right.
I caught, I said like as I went through the breakdown. But I
Like
will
the
say,
Wizard of Oz one.
yeah, like the Wizard of Oz one, the Incredibles one.
I've got three, so
okay.
let me just
Let's
rattle
hear
them off. The first one, there's a poster on Quicksilver's wall for a Baltimore Orioles player, and Baltimore is right outside DC, and I think Peter Maximoff in X-Men is from DC. Is that right?
I don't know. Is that right? Are you
Is it
trying
right?
to tell me
In
that
the
it might
movies,
Okay, well, I don't remember where he was from. I
I
can
think he's
Google
from
it
DC.
right
I think
now.
he's from DC. I think he's from DC. So there's a little bit of glimmer of hope, or it's again a subtle nod to, hey, we're just gonna send a nod to X-Men because, you know, we just bought Fox and we feel bad because those movies are bad and we're going to revamp the series. So here's a little wink at X-Men. I'm not saying all the movies are bad, but the last few were negatively received. Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, and New Mutants weren't too well received. So that could just be a way of saying, well, we still like you guys. We're going to give you a little nod, a little wink. Just had a little piece of my dog's hair is sometimes flying around the air because it's on my clothes, and so sometimes when you see like little fuzzy strings of stuff, it's my dog's hair on my clothes that gets brushed off. Okay. The other Easter egg. I'm tired. The other Easter egg I found was so on the marquee of the theater, when it's zapping in between all these different dimensions, on the marquee it says Tannhauser Gate, and Tannhauser Gate is a reference made in the famous Tears in the Rain monologue at the end of Blade Runner. So the villain of Blade Runner is a synthetic, so meaning he is not a human, and he is talking about he has a whole monologue. It's a beautiful monologue, and there are these there's a famous line about Tannhauser Gate, which is the name of the movie playing in the theater, and then Tears in the Rain, which is obviously a reference to Vision crying an actual tear. He is not an actual person, yet he is able to cry, so I thought that was a nice little parallel, a nice little callback. And the other thing is another Wizard of Oz Easter egg, which is that another name that popped up on this movie theater in this marquee was Wizard of Oz, Oz the Great and Powerful, I believe was one of the names, and that is directed by Sam Raimi, who is directing Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So I thought it was a nice little full circle. A lot of people forget that he directed that movie because it's very different from his other movies. It's not horror. It's not Spider-Man. It's some Wizard of Oz stuff with I think Mila Kunis. I saw it once, didn't like it. Yeah.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah. So those are my Easter eggs. Very, very base level. Not too much to dig into.
Cute.
I mean, unless you're digging into the Baltimore one, but that was just, I think, a nod. I think it was more of a nod to the character of Peter Maximoff than it was saying this was Peter Maximoff. I think a lot of the casting around Pietro was more of a nod at the casting and an homage almost than a actual like indicator that this was in the actual thing. But
I will say at the end of the second end credit scene, I forgot to mention this while we were talking about it. Part of me honestly kind of waited for like while she was going like back inside the house, like I totally thought that like Vision was just gonna come again and like Tommy and Billy were gonna be there, and I thought that she like traveled to that cabin to just set up the same thing like again, but this time just not having like anyone else involved. And I was like, oh my god, did she just make another hex? Did this bitch just travel across the world just to make another hex? But obviously that's not what happened. But I was like, part of me like thought that for a second. I was like, it would be so funny if it was just like if she was just like Viz. I would have been
like all of that just scrapped, and it's like, well, it was just
lost
all
my mind.
So yeah, great series. I'm very impressed with what they did. I think the episodic format really worked in this show's favor. Having a different sitcom every week really worked in its favor. I think other shows might get into a little bit of a trap of like some episodes aren't as strong as the others, but because this one had like a formula, it worked with the episodic nature. I don't think it would have worked as well as a movie, because like this actual feeling of having a different sitcom every week wouldn't be as effective without it. I think this is the perfect thing to do with a TV series as opposed to a movie. I think this was the perfect direction to go. So I'm very impressed.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So next week we will be doing the first the first off-season podcast, because we've been talking about WandaVision for our first 8 episodes of this podcast, first 9 episodes of that show, and we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming in about a week, but we have nothing until then, so we are going to be doing a villains ranking, which we kind of teased. So I'm going to really quickly read off the names of the villains that we will be ranking next time, so you can start compiling your lists. So when you watch us next week, or listen to us next week, you can kind of follow along and say, "Oh, I had that higher, I had that lower." And then Kelsey will also explain a little bit about like how we went about ranking them, just so when we get into the episode, we can kind of take off and just get the ball rolling. So here's the list of 30 villains we chose in chronological order of when they first appeared. Obadiah Stane / Ironmonger. Some of these have 2 names. I'll say the most recognizable one, I guess. So Obadiah Stane, Thaddeus Ross, Abomination, Justin Hammer, Whiplash, Loki, Laufey, Red Skull, Aldrich Killian, Trevor Slattery, the actor who plays the Mandarin, Malekith, Alexander Pierce, Crossbones, Ronan the Accuser, Ultron, Ulysses Claw, Yellow Jacket, Helmut Zemo, Caecilius, Dormammu, Ego, Vulture, Hela, Killmonger, Children of Thanos, Sonny Birch, Ghost, Yonrog, and Mysterio. So those are the 30. We will address the two obvious ones that we left out, being Nebula and Winter Soldier. We will address why we left them out in the next episode, because obviously you could probably guess why we left them off, but some people might be like, well, they were the villain for one movie. Well, guess what? They are not a villain anymore, so we are not going to count them. And Loki, yes, he's kind of not a villain anymore, but he's still up to mischief and shit. So like he's on the list. You can't have a villain's ranking without Loki. So that's a basic introduction, but we will talk about it more at the beginning of next episode. Kelsey, you want to just tell them a quick, brief idea of how we went about ranking them, opposed to just like, oh, this is my favorite, this is my least favorite?
Yeah, so we came up with a rubric. So we're grading them on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest score, 5 being the highest. So we have 5 different categories for our villains, and they are performance. So the performance by the actor themselves.
And if there are multiple performances, we kind of just factor them all in. Like the Children of Thanos are a bunch of characters all grouped into one. Thanos himself has been played by multiple actors. So we're going with either the most prominent one, or we can make it like a blend of the two. So
right. Relevance, so like how impactful they were to the rest of the events in the MCU, outside of maybe the one movie that they were in. Their backstory, I'm kind of taking this as like kind of like, what is their motivation? What is their super objective throughout the film? Like what put them on the path to being someone's arch nemesis?
Right, and how fleshed out we feel the character is in general, because some characters are very like one note, and some have so many different layers of backstory. Even if we don't see the backstory, we can definitely like feel the motivations of these characters and see how much they've gone through. You don't see baby Thanos, but Thanos, his plan and how he's gone about his whole life, whereas you see a young Killmonger, so that's a very literal backstory. And then some characters you don't see anything at all. Yeah.
So then we have style, which is mainly their physical appearance, but also I feel like the way that they fight, how they carry themselves, that kind of thing. Is it exciting? Is it interesting? Do you like it? Do you hate it? All that. Kind of stuff.
Uniforms, like do they have a cool suit, or is it just literally? Well, I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't give an example of a bad style. But
right.
yeah.
And then lastly, fear factor, just like how scary they are, how evil they are, how I guess
powerful
and powerful they are.
Because you obviously have people who are just actors.
Want to encounter in a dark alley, right? Basically,
you have people who are just actors, and then people who are literal giant monsters that have come to bargain. So there's a big difference, I think, between someone who can snap away half the galaxy and then someone who can knock over Thomas the Tank Engine on a playset. I'm not trying to spoil my list too much, but
no, I hear what you're saying though, Dill.
I'm out of my drink. I'm sad. I took a sip and there was no coffee left.
So I think
McDonald's
that's probably
coffee. It's good coffee.
To wrap it up then. If you're out of coffee.
This was a lot of fun.
I've had a Shamrock Shake this whole time.
Oh my god, sponsored by McDonald's. Let's cheers through the camera. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Boom. There we go. Yeah, you're slightly delayed, so yours was a little later, but it's okay. I can't even sip. This was a lot of fun. WandaVision was great. We're big fans. I hope every other series is as good. I'm going to assume they're going to not be as good, just because I think Wanda herself is just such an interesting character. How it would rank in the MCU for me, I said it's top tier. So, Kelsey, where does this rank in the overall MCU for you?
WandaVision, honestly, it's definitely if not top 5, definitely top 10.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward
if not top 5,
if it is
right outside of top 5.
Yeah, like I think it like might be my 5 because like
Yeah.
I think the Avengers, the Infinity Game, Infinity War and Endgame were just so
Welcome back to
epic
the
to me.
Infinity Games. Sorry.
Infinity War and Endgame were just so like epic in proportion, and just the amount of work it must have taken to pull it off is just so impressive to me. And then Black Panther is just such an interesting like uh, cultural piece also, as well as a superhero piece. Like it's just such a good movie on its own. And then
Mhm.
like Guardians 2 has always just been like my favorite. Like I just love
Ooh,
going back to
love
it the most.
Guardians too. I'm a Guardians 1 girl.
It's fine, but I love Guardians 2. Just like I just have the most fun with that one.
Yeah.
But this is like this might pass Guardians 2 and maybe Black Panther someday upon rewatch. But I think it's like a solid number 5 right now. Like it's up there with like Civil War as like being my 5. Like that's where I'm at. In the overall scheme, I know we haven't done an MCU ranking. We will somewhere down the line, I guess. Once more movies come out, we can do a full MCU ranking. But I think this is it. Like this is up there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So where can you find? Not where can you find? You know where to find yourself. Where can they find you, Kelsey?
I'll tell you right now. You can find me on
Okay.
Instagram at Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. You can find me on TikTok at KOZ13, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Koz Productions, KOZ Productions. And you can check out the video that I just released yesterday about all my thoughts regarding Captain Marvel and women representation in the MCU. I
That's awesome.
finally did it. It's up there. Dill, I'd love to hear your thoughts. We can dive deeper into maybe a discussion on that because I think honestly it'll probably take like a full hour long podcast. So I think that
Yeah.
we should reserve that for a special time. But
Yeah, but definitely take a
happy
look at that. Take a look at Kelsey's video, everyone. She is doing great stuff over at her channel. I have been on a few things on her channel. One that I did not know what I was signing up for, and one that I had a very fun time performing in. I think I've done 2 things for you, right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah. So
At
check
least
those out. Oh, and then your blooper reel of the one thing. So
right.
yeah, check out our videos. I won't even tell you which videos are mine because I want you to watch all our videos to then see which one hers is.
Thanks, Dill.
But yeah, good stuff over there. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo on Twitter. You can find me at TikTok at Dylan Randazzo417. I post music videos. I post cooking videos. I post 1-minute movie reviews from last year. All my movie reviews from this year are on the channel, the Dill Pickle Movie Network. Here, I teased a bunch of new shows this week. We got some Oscar show. We got a bad movies, so bad they're good show coming. We just had our first podcast for the Great American Film Off with Crosby Rosa, which is like a debate style show. But the only show that you can find here once a week is right here, Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. Kelsey, you are special. You have a show every week here on this channel. You're not just a once a month or a twice a month kind of gal. We talk Marvel every week, and that is every show I create every show equally. Every show is equal in my heart, but you just get to be on the channel more, just because there's so much Marvel stuff coming out every single week. It's if we were to do this once a month, these episodes would be 3 hours long. So, thank you so much, Kelsey. Another great episode. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you, Dill. Always love talking Marvel with you.
Yeah, I have a new energy about me today. I think it's the hair. I think the haircut
I
is
think
because
the
this is the
hair
first
and the
time.
coffee. I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I'm like falling asleep.
We just swapped. So like yeah, you were Agatha and I am Wanda, and I just took all your power, and I in terms of enthusiasm, and I am living off that energy. Yeah, first time the channel is seeing me with the shorter hair. Thank you so much, Roxy Hair Studio. You are the best. Kelsey, you got your prom hair done there.
Love Roxy.
Yes.
Need to go back
Yes,
there.
Roxy. Love Roxy. Thank you, Roxy, for this hair. It is amazing. I love it. I miss the long locks, but Bucky had the long hair, but he also had short hair. So, and Cap had a beard, and then he shaved it. So things change. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. We will see you next time for our villains ranking on Marvel-ous Movie